Rather lads, welcome back to Kossi's Arsenal podcast. My name is Kossi. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in all parts of the world. I'm quite excited because the transfer market is catching up and down. There are 4 days to go, just like I told you, and it is absolute fire. Now, we are talking about a change in our priority. We are talking about a new winger priority at the moment. Mykhailo Mudryk is the player that Arsenal have recently asked information about. According to Fabrizio Romano, this is what he said. Keep an eye on top talent, Mykhailo Mudryk. Everton have had a 30 million euro verbal proposal turned down by Shakhtar Donetsk last week. Arsenal have now explored the conditions of signing Mudryk and the deal a few days ago. But just on the player side, many clubs want him, want to watch until the transfer end. That is where we are, lads. Of course, we're talking about Wilfried Zaha in this one. We are talking Pedro Neto still in this one. But the most important one is Mykhailo Mudryk, a player wanted widely in Spain, in Italy, in the German Bundesliga, and also in the Premier League. Now, this is not the first time I'm reporting about Mykhailo Mudryk. I'm going to be telling you all the details. We will revisit what the player is all about and what exactly he brings to the table. But this is not the first time Mykhailo Mudryk has been discussed internally by Arsenal Football Club. One thing I will confirm as well, according to David Ornstein, is that the deal for Pedro Neto looks unlikely at now because Wolverhampton Wanderers feel they're in a position where they do not need to be forced to sell. They need to stay with the player this summer. And of course, they have already sold Morgan Gibbs-White for around £45 million. So literally, they're balancing the books. So they might not need to sell Pedro Neto in order to balance the books. So all that is going to come up in this episode. Now, I wanted to ask you about Mykhailo Mudryk, but I'm very, very sure not many of you know about him. Now, the Ukrainian Premier League is back. I did watch a couple of games. I think it was, I did see Shakhtar play. I think they shared a 0-0 draw in their first game of the campaign. I looked at a couple of other, teams play as well. So their league is back. Mykhailo Mudryk, one player that Shakhtar Donetsk would love to keep, but also would be very happy to sell if the right offer comes in. Now, let's start off with the price. Let's start off with the price because it is very, very interesting for me that they have turned down 30 million euros. Quite interesting. They've turned down an offer worth 30 million euros from Everton. And however much I think about it, however strongly I think about it, I'm quite very, very amused that they turned down that an offer in that magnitude. Now, look, that means one or two things. One, that the league in the Ukraine is back. So Shakhtar Donetsk might not want to sell Mykhailo Mudryk at the moment. That is one thing that you will put into consideration. And then the other thing is that they value him over 30 million euros. Probably 35, probably 40, probably 45. Now, this is going to be my argument, right? This is going to be my argument. If Arsenal are going to offer 40 million euros for Mykhailo Mudryk, then we need to offer 50 million euros for Pedro Neto. And listen, this would be my argument. If you think about Pedro Neto and what he brings to the table, and you think about him and all the experiences gathered in the Premier League, I think he's also a player entering his prime. I mean, for wingers, 23, in the next 2 years, 24-25, he's entering his prime. So you'd rather sign Pedro Neto rather than Mykhailo Mudryk, because Mudryk is coming from a Ukrainian league that is so far below in rankings to the Premier League, first and foremost. And personally, I would advise Mudryk to go to the German Bundesliga, to go to the Italian Serie A. I think those two leagues would do well. Even the Spanish La Liga, by the way. I think if he goes to the Spanish La Liga, to a club like Valencia, it would actually work out very, very well for him. So, look, anyway, let's speak about Mudryk and what he brings to the table. He's 21 years of age. He's not made as many appearances for Shakhtar Donetsk as there is only at only 21. You expect not very many, not very many appearances from the player, and we're talking about a guy that is wanted throughout Europe's top 5 leagues. He's wanted in Italy, he's wanted in Germany, he's wanted in Spain, and he's also wanted in the UK. So maybe there is a reason as to why there is a high demand. And Fabrizio Romano puts it very clearly. He says he's a top talent. Keep an eye on top talent Mykhailo Mudryk, because at the moment, top clubs are exploring the deal, and we're waiting to see what Arsenal are going to do. So we find ourselves in a very difficult situation where we wanted Rafinha at the beginning of the transfer window, but we'll have to settle and we'll have to end up with Mykhailo Mudryk. I'm not trying to say this in a bad way, but Rafinha and his quality and his profile, Pedro Neto and his quality and his profile, they just seem so different from Yeremy Pino, from Mykhailo Mudryk. They're so different because Mudryk is 21, no experience at all. Absolutely no experience. He's only made 23 appearances for Shakhtar Donetsk and has not really developed that much. Now, I understand, look, clubs scouting him and bringing him into the bigger side of Europe in terms of football, but then I would be okay if he comes to Europe, to Fiorentina, to Valencia, to Villarreal. That is where I think he should go. But coming into this Arsenal side, stepping into this Arsenal side, there's going to be a lot of demands on his shoulders. It's not going to be a very different situation from what we are experiencing with Bukayo Saka. You need to you need a lot of sympathy votes. You need as many sympathy votes as there is for Saka when he picks up an injury, when he doesn't perform well. You have to protect him because he's a kid and he's that young. And when you bring in Mykhailo Mudryk, who's also 21, I want to say there is an improvement because, look, another addition to the squad. And I want to say there is something done, but we are almost in the same situation. We are almost left in the same situation. So, look, Mykhailo Mudryk, not a bad buy. It wouldn't be a bad buy. It's certainly not a panic buy. Because one thing I don't like, in the transfer market is when your club goes in, is when my club goes in and brings in a player under pressure, panic buys. Damn, I hate those wins. I definitely hate panic buys because at the end of the day, they don't make any sense. But anyway, Fabrizio says top talent. All the scout reports I've been looking at, they show that he's a player with a lot of potential, a player that can develop into a massive talent. Whether that is going to happen or not, that remains to be seen. If Arsenal are going to make an offer, that also remains to be seen. But I think for us to make an offer, it will directly depend on either Arsenal, either the price of the player is going to be below 40 million euros. Because for me, if it is above 40 million euros, then go for Pedro Neto. Invest once. Go for Pedro Neto. Because I'm looking at Mykhailo Mudryk as a buy that you go for this year. And then in the next 2 to 3 years, you might need to move him on. Like Liverpool did with Takumi Minamino. The players that can establish themselves well in the Premier League and the players that can establish themselves in Premier League sides. But in the end, at the end of the day, they will struggle. They will really, really struggle. So I think Mykhailo Mudryk, if we only take Mykhailo Mudryk if no one is available. I like the Guna talk. He was talking about Arsenal's winger situation, and was talking about Marco Asensio, and he said, I love Marco Asensio, but we would only go for Marco Asensio in his perspective if it's a loan deal and if we fail to get Pedro Neto or Wilfred Zaha. However much I don't like Zaha, however much I feel Zaha is old and there is no resale value on his head, but he's the kind of winger we want. And actually, I think Arsenal should be thinking in that direction. What kind of player are we looking at? What kind of player do we want? a wide winger, a wide forward who can hold the width of the pitch so strongly, a wide forward who can take on players in 1v1 situations and beat them, and also a player who's going to add to that goal tally so that he takes that burden away from the likes of Gabriel Jesus, Saka, and Martinelli. Someone who can score as many goals as he can, and someone who can impact our games individually as much as they can. Wilfried Zaha, Pedro Neto, they have that quality. But Mykhailo Mudryk, there are so many skeptical areas in that deal. Not a bad player, not a bad talent, but you need to think about, one, the age, the experience, the lack of experience, the age, the lack of experience. You'll have to think about things like, what if it doesn't work out, right? All those things. And is he the perfect competition to Bukayo Saka, really? Is it the perfect competition to Gabriel Martinelli? Is he? I thought we needed that kind of experience that Gabriel Jesus brings to this forward line at Arsenal. If you can get another player, 23, 24, 25, gives you that kind of experience, gives you that kind of pedigree, I think it works well. That is in my opinion. I think it would really, really work well for us. But anyway, currently, according to Fabrizio Romano, keep an eye on Mykhailo Mudryk. Arsenal, Everton in the Premier League, two sides that are fighting for his signature. Arsenal have asked information about the player from the player side. So we've asked about his availability, whether he wants to move to the Premier League, whether he's ready for a move, and what he would ask for in terms of wages and things like that. So we have asked for conditions and information about the player. If we fail to get Pedro Neto, if we fail to get Wilfried Zaha and Marco Asensio, Mykhailo Mudryk is a name that has been strongly and widely discussed by this Arsenal side. Now, the other story I wanted us to dive into is definitely about Youri Tielemans. Fabrizio Romano as well has been speaking on the Here We Go podcast, and he said, look, currently the deal for Youri Tielemans is not advancing because of Leicester City still being up there in terms of their demands. They're saying 40 million pounds is worth it. They're saying if you do not have 40 million pounds, then you will not be able to sign Youri Tielemans. Arsenal are not ready to sign Youri Tielemans for that amount. Look, I think Romano puts it very clear because he says here, and I want to quote him. He says, Arsenal feel 30 to 40 million pounds for Youri Tielemans, left with 1 year on his contract, is way too high. They are unprepared. They're not ready to pay that huge amount of money. I think, look, I think that's it. I think that is it. There is no other, update on this one. It's either Leicester reduce their asking price. I don't know why. I don't know why they're going for 40 million. I don't know why they're going for 40 million. It's either they're ready to let the player go on a free, or otherwise they believe there will be a club that comes in and pays some decent amount of money. I think this is what Leicester have been hoping for all season. Raise the price to 40, then a club comes in with 25, with 30 million, and grab that kind of money and run. Now, Arsenal is not that kind of club, and Arsenal will not fall for that. We very much know that. The only way Arsenal will, fall for that amount of money if Youri Tielemans was performing at his best currently, and if he had 2 or 3 years left on his contract. But Tielemans is not performing at his best currently. I mean, we need to be honest. He's not performing at his best currently, and also with 1 year left on his contract, we should be 40 million with the availability of wingers there is in the market currently. No, that is not happening. So if the Youri Tielemans deal doesn't happen, it is down to Leicester City. They do not want to lower their asking price. Now, Jean-Michel Aulas as well has made very interesting comments around the future of Paqueta. He has said that Lucas Paqueta, there is another English top club that is interested, By the time we wake up in the morning, we might see a different name. And now, the information, of course, on the table with regards to Lucas Paqueta has always been West Ham. We have always felt like he's gonna go to West Ham. He's going to join West Ham Football Club and do that. But of course, we know the controversy Jean-Michel Aules and Lyon can produce. They are not any. They're not scared of it. They're never scared of producing controversy. So I won't be very surprised if another club comes in. I'm just praying that that club is Arsenal, and that's why I'm mentioning this story, because I think we've wanted Lucas Paqueta, and if you don't get Yuri Tillemans and you don't get a winger, how about trying to sign Lucas Paqueta at he's one player that can give you you're signing two players in one. You're hitting two birds with one stone. Lucas Paqueta can play for you as a right winger very well. We've seen Bernardo Silva play there. And I think Paqueta is the same caliber of player. And he can also play for you in that, central midfield role where we want to employ Yuri Tillemans. And I think Lucas Paqueta is better than Yuri Tillemans, to be honest. If we can move on Albert Sambilokonga, just like it has been dictated, and bring in Lucas Paqueta for £35 million, West Ham are going to have a laugh. Honestly, West Ham are going to have a laugh. Signing Lucas Paqueta for £35 million is an absolute steal. It is an absolute steal. This is a guy that was valued at around, I think it was 80 million euros in January by Jean-Michel Aules. If they get him at 35 million, it is an absolute steal. It is a really, really a big steal by West Ham. So Lucas Paqueta there. I don't know if Arsenal is the club swinging around and sniffing around the deal, but there is a Premier League club, sniffing around. I hope it is Arsenal, honestly. And then we've talked about Mikhailo Modric, we've talked about Yuri Tillemans, and more transfer stories are still going to come. We'll be live today as we dive into still the latest around Arsenal and the transfer market. See you very, very soon.